welcome to the Chat Menagerie. I'm Dorian Wallace, and joined today is a good friend of mine who I have known for a while
Yes,
online,
you have.
Mr. Don Roff.
How
How
you
you
doing?
doing?
I am doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Oh, thank you for coming. I know it's been a rough week for you, and
It has a
I
little bit.
yeah, and I appreciate you taking time out. I really
Yeah,
do.
yeah. No worries. No worries. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we were, chit-chatting a little bit before I started recording,
Right.
and we'll get back into that. But I do want to talk about your brand new book, which is the first in a series, Clare
hmm
at 16, that
Yeah,
is being made into a movie. This is so
it
exciting.
is. It is. It is in the works. So, yeah, it's been in the works for a while, but I think it's really coming down to, getting manifesting into something that's actually tangible instead of just on paper. So
Yeah.
actually I have a meeting with the director on Monday, and
Huh?
we're going, yeah, and we're going through the script like page by page. It's really about the script. It's kind of like you have the script, and then with the money with that script, then you got to get the star, and then which we did, and then you got to get the money, which we did, and then you kind of go back to the script, and you keep perfecting the script, perfecting the script, perfecting the
Yeah.
script. So that's what we're doing, is just perfecting the script, and it's we and it's not going to be made for a large amount of money, so we kind of need to like keep that in mind as we write the script too. Yeah, obviously we're not going to have Claire hanging off a helicopter and exploding buildings and shit like that. So we have to keep it kind of on the lower end of the budget. So
Yeah, otherwise you start looking like Sharknado, which,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
know,
we don't want. That would
yeah.
actually be cool. Claire, I'd totally write. I'd write the shit out of Clarinado though. That'd be fun. Or
Yeah.
hopefully I'm hoping. I'm actually hoping we see some like Claire fan fiction or something. I'd love to see somebody write Clarinado, man. I would totally.
Okay, we're gonna manifest that into the
Yeah, yeah,
universe and
yeah,
make it
yeah.
happen.
Totally. Manifest the shit out of that. Yeah.
Oh,
Power of
that's
attraction and all that.
awesome. And I know actually the
Law of
perfect
attraction, I guess. That's
person.
it.
Yeah, I know the perfect person to write that too.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, because she's really well. My godson is really into sharks and Sharknado, and
Oh,
they
right,
have
right.
watched all of them. So I'm like, I don't know. I may put a bug in
Yeah,
her
yeah.
ear.
Yeah. You like, yeah, absolutely. That could be weird. I don't know. I could think of somebody. Yeah, yeah. That could be fun. But
Yeah, it's I know when it first came out because I was like, what the hell is that? And
yeah,
then it's like, oh, okay, it's so bad it's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally got it after that.
Actually, it's a small world. That agent I've kind of been working with represents the guy who did Sharknado. I was like, whoa, that's kind of a weird small world. So it was,
Cool.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of interesting.
it's amazing who runs in the same circles within
Yeah, it's
like
it's actually
the
a lot smaller than you would think.
yeah
The whole industry it's just like a small town. It's very small,
yeah
and word gets around about things. So you want to be as positive as possible. Even though there's a lot of negativity and weirdness, and it attracts a lot of weird A-type
mm,
personalities and a lot of narcissists and a lot of gaslighting and craziness like that. So you just want to keep yourself just positive all the time, and hope for the best is all you can do, really. So because
oh
it's a
yeah
weird business. You get like some days you're just on on air, you're on cloud, like, oh, this person's doing this, and then the next day it all falls out. And so
yeah
it's a lot of ups and downs. So I kind of um I think it was William Goldman. He wrote, of course, his first screenplay was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and
yeah
went on to write a number of Oscar-winning scripts. And he said the only way he really stays sane is he's actually a novelist first, and he's a novelist between scripts. And so that's what I do, is I just bury my head in another novel, and whatever happens. Like things in Hollywood, which things that should take a day take a week, things that should take a
yeah
week take a month, things that take a month take 6 months. It's just like the waiting kills you if
yeah
you let it. But if you just like And it used to, but now it's just like you go about your thing and hope for the best, have zero expectations because they can all switch on and sometimes some wonderful things happen and some not wonderful things happen, but it's just, you just kind of have to not really rely on the day to day. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it can get you down because it does take a long time. I mean, my book, Snowblind, really thought that was going to go fast. That was optioned in 2016 when it first came out.
Wow.
And we still are not shooting yet. They want to shoot this year, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. This pandemic has thrown a kink into
it definitely
everybody's.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely set everything back a year alone anyway. Almost even in some cases maybe a year and a half to 2 years. It really set
Yeah.
everything back. Because
Well,
like Snowblind, we were right on. We were getting ready to shoot in Romania. We had, everything was there,
wow.
and then boom, the pandemic hit right then, and then it just all went. So yeah, so they're looking at actually filming in New Zealand now. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, because
Hobbit
it's
town.
exactly. I was like, oh, New Zealand's gorgeous. I love all movies shot
Yeah.
in New Zealand, and of course that's Peter, Jackson country, but of course it's summer. In the North America, it's we're coming to summer, but they're coming to their winter, so they
Yeah.
could actually prep and shoot, during the summer because it's winter there. So that would be. It's just funny they have to go all the way across the earth to shoot Alaska, which
Yeah.
is where it takes place in the book. But it's cheaper to shoot in New Zealand than it is Alaska. So there you go. So
Yeah.
it's pennies
Well,
on the dollar. Same with Romania. It's pennies on the dollar. You can take
wow.
a $3 million movie and make it a $6 or $9 million movie in another country because you just get more value because you're not spending so much on everything. So that's why so many movies are made in other places.
Yeah. Ours is actually because I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and
Right.
for a while there, we were having a lot of people coming out and
Oh
filming
yeah, that was
stuff,
big.
and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like what was it, Banshee, which I just started watching because I didn't
Yeah,
have the channel, and oh my God, that show is so fucking good.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really is a good show.
yeah. I
Um,
remember in the early '90s. I think like James Cameron shot. They built a big tank. I think they shot like the Abyss there. I think they shot the first
yeah,
like uh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies there. It was kind of like Hollywood South. Like it was really
yeah.
big for a while, and then it's kind of weird. It kind of ping pongs all over the place. Then Seattle was for a while, and then that went up to Vancouver, and now it's really like Georgia and
Yeah.
and New Mexico because they have that like 35% tax rate. So it's like
Oh,
that's
nice.
it's very seductive to film down here. And I
Yeah.
mean, in fact, I was just talking to a director friend of mine who did shoot a movie. Mark Pavia. He made the movie Fender Bender, which if
Ah.
you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. It's an '80s slasher throwback with a twist. He made it for
Ooh.
Shout Factory, and he shot it for like $1 million or less in New Mexico, but it doesn't look, it looks like more than $1 million movie. He shot it really well, but it's definitely a throwback to the '80s. And I have a script that I've just kind of been floating around. We were talking about it, and so we're going to kind of see kind of what happens, but it's just like, hey, New Mexico, and New Mexico. It's also about crews too. Like there's really good crews in New Mexico and Georgia. They built the crews up because there's so much stuff is being shot there, like Walking
Yeah.
Dead in Georgia, and Marvel shoots all their stuff there, so you have to have good crews as well, even
Yeah.
so
Yeah. That's
yeah,
that's who keeps that's the bloodlight, or
right,
the blood in the
absolutely, yeah,
veins,
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Shout out to all you guys.
Definitely. Yeah, it doesn't happen. It does not happen without, the Teamsters, humping lights, setting up stuff, building sets, all that stuff, and so
Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, it takes a village to make a movie, even a TV
Yeah.
show, or a TV episode. Even a short film, you've probably
Yeah.
got, 10, 15 people. It takes a lot of people, more than you would think, so And it's hard to cut corners. You really, because
Yeah.
you need people around to do things. So yeah.
Yeah, unless you want it to look like crap, don't hire the neighborhood kids.
Exactly. Which is what I used to do when I grew up. Is like, I'd get all my friends together. And it's funny. We used to shoot on film, and then kind of when video came along, I became the videographer for the football game. So I used to like go film because the librarian who was in charge of the video equipment didn't want to do it. He wanted to go home and to his
Yeah.
wife and everything. And so he did, he wanted his Friday nights not to be filming. So I would film the Friday night games, and then I would take the video equipment home for the weekend. And then I would, like, all my friends, we would make movies. And but yeah, it sucked being like the nerd, the nerd in the football bus, listening to like Jerry Goldsmith and Ennio Morricone and John Williams in my headset, and everybody, calling me a lot of homosexual, epithets and everything else, and I was kind
Oh,
of a chubby
sorry.
kid. Oh, it's fine, but it's just funny, like and like my comfort level was not, to sit around people who are not definitely my tribe, and
Yeah.
just to be able to have that video equipment to do that, But I felt it was also, well, another cool thing is, hey, you got out of, if it was an away game, I mean, you had to get up really early on Friday morning and drive all day, so you also got out of school, so that was a
Yeah.
bonus too. So I got to get out of school with all the other, with all the jocks. So, but yeah, just the level of suffering
Yeah.
you would go through just to be able to make your movies over the weekend with your friends. I mean, it was worth it, So, so I'm
I was
definitely
going
going
to
to write
say
about that.
Forged
I'm
in
going to write
Fire.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should. You really
Oh, I'm
should.
going to. I kind of have a story. It's like I really want to attach a really good story to it, to a character like that. But yeah, it's just the level of, nowadays it's like, who even thinks about that? You have a perfectly good camera on your phone. I mean, you could just, the other day, my dog wanted in, and I made of like a, you know, 45-second movie of her with music over the top, and it would take me all
Oh,
day to do something like that. I
yeah.
posted on Instagram, and boom, 100 people have seen it like that. And it's, it was just a different time,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
because you didn't need
I'm not.
video equipment, at
Yeah,
that
I'm
time. You
I'm
could,
not far off of you in age, so
right,
it's
right,
like, yeah, I completely remember that. The
yeah, yeah.
huge, it was probably about the size or maybe even bigger than a boombox, that kind
Oh
of
yeah,
school
yeah.
equipment.
Oh, this
It's like,
equipment was ridiculous because it
yeah,
had like it was an RCA camera,
yeah.
and it didn't have the, it wasn't the, like the later models that had the tape inside it, like the Betamax and all that. You had to it's attached to a video unit that had a battery, and you had to carry that around with this cord, and it's very light sensitive, so you could burn out the tubes inside the light if it was it was on the light too long. Very old
Yeah.
school camera. So yeah, it was really high tech in 1981, kind of video equipment. But yeah, but man,
Yeah.
it was gold to be able to make movies like that. And that's really, I really started just making movies, not really writing very much. Then I started kind of writing little scripts and stuff like that. And mostly we just kind of made them off the cuff. We just kind of make the story up on the spot,
Yeah.
which was fun. And then I started like kind of writing scripts later on and trying to really perfect my craft as a storyteller, and I planned like all these big elaborate movies we were going to shoot that never kind of manifested, mostly because of money, because shooting on
Yeah.
film was so expensive. I mean, that was the expensive part. Like, you could make a movie for nothing, but just making, the film developing was a lot of, buying the film and developing was a lot of money, so
Yeah.
so it just never really manifested, but that was okay. I started writing, and just really fell in love with writing. So, and of course I started, screenwriting was my first love, and then kind of novels kind of came later. So, um, yeah.
Now, what's the difference, like, between, I mean, I know a little bit about it, but not enough, between,
Right.
novel writing, because that's what I did. And I thought
Yeah.
about screenwriting, but I was like, I don't know how to set this up. How do they
Yeah.
differentiate?
It is a completely different animal. Novels are very internal.
Mm,
Novels are all about your I mean, you can have action novels that are very on the surface and have a lot of action, but they're
Mhm.
really more about your character's internal life and how that changes and how they perceive things. And that's kind of where you get the luxury of the novel, because you can, as a reader, you can dwell in that world longer at
Yeah.
your own pace, and you can really empathize with the character and kind of bond with them. So that's kind of the advantage the novel has over film. However, there are films that are very moving and you can empathize with that character. It can change your life too. But
Yeah.
films are more on the exterior. And when I've actually adapted novels to the screen, and you have a lot of scenes that might happen in a character's head, but then you have to externalize that on a script, because you can't really, I mean, you can show flashbacks and you can do things like that.
Yeah.
But it always a lot of times works better when the action is happening in real time, as it's happening, kind of thing.
Mm.
So you have to figure
Yeah.
out a way to do that, and you also have to compress. I adapted Shelley Crane's novel series, the first book. It's a YA series, Significance. I adapted the first book, and I think it's a 400 or 500 page book, somewhere around there,
Wow.
450. And a script can only be like 120 is pushing it as far as pages, because scripts are about the way they kind of budget them is like a page a minute, so really like
Okay.
110 pages, just under 2 hours is kind of the sweet spot. And even 100 to 110 is really good. So I had to basically take that novel, 450 page novel, down to 120 pages or so. So I
Wow.
could only do, and there was a lot, and it's a very interior book. It's a lot about, it's very much like a Twilight sort of story. It's paranormal romance. There's a lot of the character's feelings and what she's going through. And that's great for a book and to get lost in that character, but it does not translate to movies at all. So
No.
I had to exteriorize that. And then I kind of, as far as like, I kind of went towards the last part of the book, which kind of had a lot more exterior action and things going on. So I kind of
Mm.
was like, okay, I'm going to use that, and I can almost use parts of that wholesale, and then kind of pull back and then rebuild the opening, so I can build up to this, point. And with every story, if you kind of have your end game and then you kind of work backwards, it's a lot easier, than
Yeah.
kind of surprising yourself. Like, oh, I didn't know I was going to end, so
Yeah.
especially with a screen, and with a screenplay, you have to do that, because even before I wrote the script, I had to turn in a treatment, which is basically a very detailed outline of how
Yeah.
I was going to approach writing the book. So I had to turn in this, treatment, and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like. And then you get approval on that. And then the next step is to go to script. So that's already kind of figured out, because they don't want to just be surprised. They don't want to give you, 4 to 6 weeks and hope you turn in something. They want to have a good idea up front that this is what they're going to get,
Yeah.
yeah, it
God, and I
but yeah,
thought
I could
writing a
only
synopsis was a pain in the
oh
ass.
yeah. But treatments are I actually enjoyed writing treatments. They're a lot of fun. Scripting
Cool.
scripting is a lot, to me, is harder. Even though there's fewer words, it's like you just have to make every word count, every scene count, every bit of dialogue count. The nuance, you have to put all the nuance in there. In a treatment, you can just say, oh, this happens and she feels this way. And then in a script, you actually have to dramatize that. So you can't just write that as, oh, now she feels this way. Now, how do you dramatize that with a look or with a line of dialogue, or
Yeah.
preferably not with dialogue, preferably with action, so it's harder. But I think because of that kind of writing style, I probably had written, I don't know, 25 scripts before I started, 25 scripts before I started writing my first novel. So I
Wow.
had a lot of that as far as, and it took me a while to like get my novel muscles going, because everything was on the exterior. A lot of my editor was like, they're just doing this and then this and this. How are they feeling about it? And that's when I was like, oh, you're supposed to do that, and
Yeah.
so I still, and I'm a reader too. And I was like, oh yeah, I did, so I had to really, and now
Switch
I
gears.
love interior of I'm spoiled with novels now, so, and that's my preferred thing because I'm spoiled. I can do whatever I want. I can cast it how I want. I'm the art
Yep.
director. I'm the actor. I'm the production designer. It's just like I get to do all of it. I get to create the whole world, and I love that. And for the most part, now that I have a publisher, of course, now I have more deadlines. But in the beginning, like when I wrote Clare at 16, nobody wanted it. Nobody was expecting it. I just had 6 weeks of bliss, just like getting up every morning and just like writing for an hour and a half just to see what was going to happen, with this character. And that was like the funnest writing I'd ever done in my life. It was like the funnest time. Nothing's even matched it since. And I think one of the reactions why people like the book is I think because of that joy that I had writing it kind of came through onto the page.
Yeah.
Of course, it's gone through many, 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 drafts, but it's pretty close other than just kind of, dramatizing things or clarifying things or adding a little bit more. It's pretty much there. I think the first draft was it was pretty short. I think it was like 58,000 words. And I think it's currently like around 66,000. So yeah, there was some stuff added, but there's also some stuff removed, a lot of clarification happening. But it's pretty damn close to like nothing structurally changed it or anything. So it was all pretty much there on the page, So with that one, I didn't really have an end game in mind. I was just like, what interesting thing can happen next? I would just like, I would get up. I was working at a phone center. It was like for USAA. But that was the account. It was like Sykes was the company, and I
know them.
Yeah, I'd have to get up. I had to be at work at 8 o'clock to get the training done and then to get on the phone. And so I'd have to get up at like 5 a.m. if I wanted to get any writing done. And that's not me. Like I haven't done that since like I was in the Army. So I had to like, build my room into a sleep cave. I had the lights down. I had to buy a fan. I had to do all this ritual to like even try to get to sleep by 10 o'clock to try to at least get 7 hours. Then I get up, by 5:30, I have my coffee and I was writing, and I could write till about 7, and then I would have to, of course, make my lunch, get ready, and go to work. And then during that, like when I finish up I would put little like bullet points, like what was going to happen next. Or as I was driving to work, it would give me 20 minutes to think, this would be okay. This would be cool. Oh, this would be awesome. I usually, most of my stories now I beat sheet out. So I kind of know what's coming. But this one was like, this has got to be good. Oh my God. Oh, wouldn't this be cool if Truman's dad was, the cop, and it's like, that would be so fucked up. And so it was like, that was the thing. It was like, what fucked up thing could happen next? And that was all I had to write on was what fucked up thing could happen next. And that seemed to work. So
I like that. I don't know. Ideas for some reason, and I'm so glad that somebody invented this. There's actually like a notepad that you can use in the shower because for me, of course, these ideas. Shower, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's the best time. Oh yeah, whenever. Yeah, I keep my laptop open because if I do have to like, and it always happens because I'm always late because I'm always pushing time and deadlines. I get up from my writing thing, I go take a shower, but I keep my laptop open because I invariably will get an idea. Or if I go for a walk or a run, I have to have something, or if I don't have it on me. Or nowadays, I can just send myself a voice text or an email. I just open up my email and just text it in and then send it, and usually it's all malign, but I know what I meant, so I don't even really care. I don't care if it's spelled right. It's only gonna I'm only gonna see it. So I use that a lot, but a lot of times I have to keep my laptop there because I'm gonna have a good idea, And going out, like say on walking is one of the best things. Like going out not expecting that, like not like I'm gonna work on this problem when I'm just like I'm not gonna work on anything. I'm not gonna think about anything. And when you do that, that's when all the ideas come to you. You're not thinking about anything because then it's like you're just open, and then So any kind of mundane task does that, washing the
Yeah.
dishes or going for a long drive or walking or taking a shower. Any mundane task like that really, your subconscious really starts kicking in because it kind of gets bored. It's like, hey, how you doing? And
Yeah.
so that's,
Entertain me.
yeah, mowing the lawn. That's one of when I used to have a lawn to mow. That was one of the best. I sometimes, or I remember we'd go on road marches in the army, and sometimes it'd be like 20 miles.
Oh,
But I
wow.
would get a movie idea in my head. Of course, I wasn't making movies then, but I would get a movie idea, and I would work through the whole movie. I wish I had written those down, but it was just I just did it to entertain myself. And I
Yeah.
would work through a whole movie idea through this arduous, hot, march through like Georgia swamps and forests, and I'd hardly even feel it because I would just be so entertained by this idea that I was, thinking on, so
That's awesome.
yeah. Thank God it wasn't like a time of war when we probably would have been ambushed, and I probably would the guy that gets killed because it's like I was, in La La
Daydreaming.
Land, but exactly, but I would have died happy, like, oh, it's like no, I got a good story. Wait for this part, So
Yeah.
as
Just let
blood's
me
leaking out
finish.
everywhere. Yeah. So
I'm on the shores of Belize, please.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
yeah. Yeah. So
Oh.
yeah.
So
So
now with Claire, I know that's like the first in a series, so
mhm.
you have room to expand. Do you
Oh
have a
yeah,
direction that you want to
I
go in,
do.
or
Yeah. When
okay.
I wrote Claire at 16, it was just kind of a one-off. It was just kind of like I didn't even know what I was going to do with the book because honestly, I wrote the
Yeah.
book I started August 5th, 2013, and I finished the book 6 weeks later exactly. I basically wrote 10,000 words a week, which I
Wow.
was like, that's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Especially for work that I kept, I mean, anybody can write 10,000 words a week, but they're not necessarily 10,000 good words that you're going to
Yeah.
use. Maybe you're only going to use 2,000 of those words. So I was actually lucky that those were words I could actually use. But I wrote it and then I showed it to a couple of friends and I really didn't know what to do with it. Because at that time I was writing for Scholastic and that is not the kind of
Oh,
stuff that they're going to want. I was
yeah.
writing like these middle grade, vampire tales and werewolf tales and like really innocent kind of, I mean, I tried to make them as scary as you can for a middle grader kid,
Mm.
but I had no way of getting this to like a publisher. So I just sat on it for 4 years. And then in 2017, I started kind of showing it around and immediately, and I was just kind of after Snowblind had already been optioned. And then people were like very interested in my other work, because Snowblind had been optioned. Carl Urban was attached to it, and
Yeah.
and Ashley Green from Twilight. So it had a little bit of name. So people were starting to listen to know my name a little bit more. So like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a Snowblind guy. So then, immediately, like I had like three producers fighting over Claire. Like they wanted that manuscript.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I gave it to the producer who actually read the manuscript. The other two just wanted it. Like I gave
Yeah.
it to the one who actually read the manuscript. That was David Chackler. And he had actually produced. He's actually was a producer on John Carpenter's Village of the Damned, and he used to
Oh,
represent
yeah.
Tom Holland, who did Fright Night and Child's Play. That's why I have a Tom Holland quote, from Tom Holland because David, generously got that to Tom Holland, and Tom Holland read it, and he loved it. And I was like, wow, because I grew up on Tom Holland movies, starting with like Beast Within and Psycho 2 before, Fright Night and
Yeah.
Child's Play even existed. And just to have somebody who I admired, and that as I was kind of learning my screenwriting craft and watching, Psycho 2 over and over again, and he's actually in a cameo in there, which is kind of cool for a screenwriter to be in a cameo. To have him have come full circle and like, man, that teenager, that 15-year-old, 16-year-old who was writing then, if he had known that person was going to be paying attention to you, he's like, that would have been, amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But geez, I lost my train of thought. But
Okay.
where was I going?
Oh, furthering on with
Which
Claire.
Claire? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So
you
then,
know why I can follow you? Because I talk that way too.
right. So
That's the way my brain
Chackler
works.
Chackler got the book, and basically the biggest thing was it wasn't the movie. Chackler actually had he worked with Baker and Taylor because actually a music industry guy. He's represented people like Fleetwood Mac. You know, he was one of the
Oh,
people who discovered like the people of Fleetwood Mac and got them together. Like he's been in the movie industry or the music industry since the 70s. You know, he's a Vietnam vet. And
nice.
then later in the 80s, like when music was really becoming a big part of movies because of MTV, then he kind of got in the movie industry. But he was actually he was just going to help me get the book, you know, a book deal at Baker and Taylor to happen. And then along came Mark Pavia, who was actually, because David Chackler knows Stephen King, and he had actually a couple of Stephen King properties. I think it was Strawberry Spring, which is one of Stephen King's what he calls dollar babies. He used to auction those for a dollar to like young filmmakers. It's in Night
Nice.
Shift. Yeah, it's in Night Shift, and he would do his dollar babies. And Strawberry Spring's a really small, kind of modest story, but David Chackler had that for a while. And Mark Pavia, who had done Night Flyer for Stephen King, and they were actually going to do a sequel, and they actually kind of wrote it together. I wish that would have happened, but unfortunately it didn't. But Mark was kind of looking for another Stephen King property, and David's like, hey, forget Stephen King. This guy, Don Roff, you got to check this book out. And Mark read it, and he's like, oh my God, this is like Hitchcock meets John Hughes. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting take. I was like, yeah, okay, you know, Breakfast Club with a body count, sure. You know, it's like,
I like
yeah, yeah. I was like, I felt like he had a really good take on the material, and so David, you know, he decided to option my book as a movie, and then Mark came on and wrote the script, and it was great. That was like one of my favorite collaborations. I also had a great, you know, collaboration with Hank Woon when he wrote. He's the one who took Snowblind to the producers at the Traveling Picture Show, and we had a great collaboration too because, and that's one thing I want to tell like producers and screenwriters: work with the authors, work with the
Yeah.
motherfucking authors, you know, because they know the story. They know when I wrote Significance, I worked with Shelley closely, like who all has these powers, who ends up getting married to who. Does the decisions I make in this script affect what happens in the future? Can I kill this person off? Oh, this happens later on. Okay, I won't do that. Like it helps because they've lived with it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
because I've been living with Claire for 8 years. You know, everybody else is kind of a tourist. You know, they're just kind of coming in, and I'm like, I can tell you the whole universe if you want to. You know, if you know, because
Yeah.
I know where all 6 books are going. So I know exactly what her
Oh,
journey is going to be like. So because I
nice. We
worked it
get
out.
6?
6 books, yeah. So,
Yay.
and I've worked everyone out as far as like as they kind of push further out, they're a little more vague. But I know Claire's emotional journey, and that's the important. The rest is just details as far as like,
There you
you
go.
know, putting in the opposition. But I know how she's going to kind of become a full woman. You know, she's going from a
Yeah.
16-year-old girl to you know a woman. You know, so and her journey to kind of become full and whole and kind of find her place in the world, which is really what the story's about. Is she's this oddball who, of course, I kill her, okay, but it's not really fault of her own. I mean, she is, you know, she's a product of her environment, you know, in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. I mean, she didn't start out to be a killer. I mean, she had certain factors in her life that made her that way. You know, I mean, she's had brain damage. She had an abusive, you know, parental relationship. You know, it's just like there's certain factors that kind of, you know, I mean, she doesn't even seek people out to kill. It just happens, you know, it snaps, you know, she has,
Yeah.
you know, dissociative identity disorder, and she snaps, and this other, you know, less, you know, friendly personality takes over, and then somebody ends up dying, you know, and she can't help that, you know. So in future books, of course, she's trying to kind of control that a little bit more. You know, she's kind of almost like Bruce Banner. You know, she doesn't
Yeah.
want the Hulk to come out, so she's like, okay, what are my triggers? How can I like avoid this from happening? And of course, things as it is, the monster eventually does come out again and wreak havoc. That's what Clare at 17 is about. Is she's trying to kind of bring some control. I've already written that book and it's already been turned in. So she's trying to kind of rein in some control because she realized by the end of Clare at 16, there's, I think, like 6 or 7 bodies. If she didn't kill them
Wow.
personally, they died because of her or in proximity to her. So it's a bloodbath by the time you get to the end of the book. So she's like,
Wow.
okay, I need to control this shit. So she works really hard to do that, but somehow bodies keep piling up again, and fingers start getting pointed to her, and then she kind of has to find out what's causing this, and it's a lot more of a mystery than the first book is. So kind of more of a murder mystery that she's in the middle of, and she kind of has to prove her innocence. So, and
Oh,
she's on
wow.
more of an internal journey. So. And then eventually, of course, she has to let the beast come out and play to kind of to save. Ironically, she's been keeping it to kind of save herself, and then she kind of has to let it out to save herself, physically.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun to kind of figure out.
Oh, that's
That was
awesome.
that was the first sequel that was the first sequel I've ever written, and part of it is like what I love. My favorite sequels, like Aliens, is one of the best. I think one of the best sequels.
I agree.
Not because I don't know if it's a better movie per se, because Ridley Scott's Alien is perfect. It's one of the scariest fucking movies ever made, most effective. But I think what Aliens has, is Cameron went deeper into Ellen Ripley's psyche. Like, she
Yeah.
had a daughter who died of old age. So she comes back. She doesn't know who anybody is. She's been in cryostasis. So she's completely alienated, no pun intended or pun
Yeah.
intended, from society. And the one person she cared about, everybody she's ever cared about, is dead. She's completely alone. And she has post-traumatic stress. So he
Yeah.
built this character kind of based on that. And you really get this deep dive into that in Ellen Ripley's character. And I think that's where I think your best sequels kind of, and even like which I consider probably one of the greatest sequels of all time, Empire Strikes Back, which is my favorite Star Wars movie,
Yes.
is you
Me
get deeper
too.
in, like Luke Skywalker kind of gets introduced to the Force, but his journey, his dark journey to go to Dagobah and then finally face Darth Vader, he has to go into his soul to like figure out who he is, and he's so much of a richer character for doing that. So I think all good sequels take that deep dive into your character, like, who the fuck is this person, and really they're forced to really look in the mirror and like, who are you, what are you made of, and really go dark with that kind of thing. So those are my favorite sequels, is where you really take a character and really start looking at their psyche. So and then and in Claire's thing, I was like, what could possibly cause that to happen? I was like, well, she had some things in her past that might catch up with her. So
Ah.
I want to re-examine that. And so things that are kind of set up in the first book, are kind of paid off in the second book. Like the way kind of Claire is structured, Claire at 16 is like Act 1 of a screenplay. Clare at 17 is Act 2, and then Clare at 18 is Act 3. That's kind of the reverie. That's a, and then the next 3 books are kind of they're almost like a new movie. They're like a new journey for Claire, because it's a completely different story arc that happens, and it's going to be a completely different journey for her. So.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how and that's why, having this meeting with producers, is I'm like, okay, the script is pretty good, but there's a lot of things happening that, if this happens as it is, because they don't know how the sequels work, because
Yeah.
I kind of keep that information. I only let out little bits of that information as needed. So we're having that conversation, like, okay, this is going to happen in this next book, so this person cannot die, or this cannot change, or this has to happen, if you want to build the franchise, like you're talking about, we have to, set this, because I've already built the Clare cinematic, the Clare literary universe already. So they want to
Yeah.
build the Clare cinematic universe. Okay, these are the things that need to be, put into the story and retained in order to work. So
No, that's beautiful. And I
yeah.
love the fact that you have that much hands-on, you know, to you know, to be able to do that. Because,
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of times they'll just take it from the author.
To be honest, there was, I mean, with Mark, it was a great time. We had a great time, and the cool thing is with Mark, is he actually was like, so who is this mailman Bob in Claire's life? What is he exact? I mean, he's like, this doesn't make sense to me. This was when I was still, kind of. So all of that, I started getting a lot of. He was almost like a beta reader too. I had a lot of beta readers on Claire at 16. I had a retired police detective. I had psychology, psych major, college psych major, and she called me a lot of things. I was like, and helped me kind of with that, kind of fine tune it as well. But yeah, early on in Claire, I had a lot of help with that, and then they kind of went away from me for a little while, and now they kind of rein me back in again because things
Cool.
they kind of lost their course, and they're like, we need to rein Don back in here. So I'm like, yes, thank you for actually realizing that, because yeah,
Like I
I'm
told
the only
you.
one who knows, figuratively and literally where all the motherfucking bodies are buried. So you probably
Yeah.
should talk to me. So, and yeah,
Where's
so
Hoffa, by the way?
exactly. Like Scott, two of my favorite screenwriters, Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, and I'm friends with Larry Karaszewski on Facebook and Instagram. But they wrote Ed Wood, which is one of my favorite movies, and they wrote
Yeah.
they wrote a bunch of, and then they also wrote Big Eyes for Tim Burton. They wrote a ton of movies. They specialize in a lot of bio movies. They did the Andy Kaufman movie with Jim Carrey, Man on the Moon. They specialize in, biopics of really weird individuals, and he said, I think it was Larry who said it. He was like, research a project so well, know it so well that you cannot get fired. And that happens a lot. Screenwriters get fired in like a millisecond, and somebody else
Wow.
comes in who doesn't know anything about it. And if you know your subject so well, there's no possible way anybody else is going to be able to do the time and the research to be able to come in and do that. So know your subject. In the case of Snowblind, it's a haunted house story, of course, but there's the Army Ranger element, and nobody on that team has ever been in the military or an Army Ranger. So I
Yeah.
kind of had to be included on that because he's like, well, this would have happened. Is this what happened? Because I was kind of almost a technical advisor. So that, just the knowledge of that. And also, the lodge and that kind of works in a different kind of way of sort of manipulating your wants and desires. So the mythology of that. And the same with Claire is like, I've built her mythology up so much. I'm the only one who knows it, So and if I gave up all that shit, I gave them all the outlines and everything. You give up
Yeah.
all your secrets, who knows what they're going to do, So you have to keep hold of your knowledge. Your knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and that is your power. That's the only power I have. So
Use it. Use it
exactly.
wisely,
Yeah.
which it seems like you're doing.
Keep it very closely guarded, and just piss out little drops every now and then, but don't give up all your shit at once, which is hard for me because I'm a Sagittarius, and
Ah.
I'm an oversharer, and I'm just like blah, I get comfortable with somebody, I'm just like blah, and
Yep.
it's like I'm starting to learn how your words can, and especially in the entertainment business, your words can be used against you all the time. And
Oh God, yeah.
I've been learning to rein myself in a lot more, stop oversharing. It's like back in the military, the need to know base, the need to know basis.
Yeah.
If you're not in that hierarchy or on that particular mission, you don't need to know anything, and they only give you the information that you need to know, but you don't even know the whole mission. And you kind of have to be that way in the movie business too. It's just like, this person needs to know this much information, so that's all you give them, you know.
Yes.
So
Oh
you
yeah.
really have to kind of protect yourself, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, and
So
it's completely understandable. I mean,
yeah,
it's a good habit to, pick up
it
to
is. It
begin
is.
with,
Yeah,
but
it is. You don't need to overshare, because also what you're doing is you're putting out a lot of energy. Because if you kind of keep all that inside, you're gonna build that up. As you're kind of telling this, you're kind of expending that energy, and a lot of the kind of the need to create kind of goes away, because if you start talking through a story, telling everybody, then you almost don't feel like you need to write the story anymore, because you've told it so many times. So
yeah,
it also takes you need to protect your energy as well. So
yeah,
a lot of that's also not just being selfish and like, oh, and being secretive, because, you also have to just practice some self-care about who you give your energy to, and how much amount you
yes,
give your energy to as well,
yeah.
because you don't get that back, you don't get that back. So, yeah,
Yeah, and some people will take that opportunity to,
yeah.
sap you dry. I've seen
I
it
have,
happen.
I have, yeah, I have too. There's a lot of narcissistic, the movie industry tends to attract some very energy vampires, and
Yes, yeah.
they will try to get you to write for free.
Hmm.
They only want to hear they only want their ideas. They'll like, hey, I have an idea, we should do it. And it's like, okay, I was like, great, all right,
You go
some
write that book.
yeah, yeah. Or it's like, okay, I'll write that, but here's my writing fee, and here's all my back end and this and that, and then give that contract to my lawyer, and you negotiate. Oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
When we get when it gets made into a thing, then you get paid. I'm like, nah. It's like, do you go to the dentist and be like, hey, you know what? Thanks for the teeth cleaning. When my ship comes in, I'm gonna pay you. It's just like, or you
Yeah.
go get your car fixed and you'd be like, you know what? I'll get you next time, bud. It's just like, no, you're going to this person to get a service.
Yes.
A person like, for me, I started writing at 14. I'm 54. It's taken me 40 years of this fucking kid on, South Elizabeth Street, Freewater, Oregon, with his fucking movie camera to figure out life, and and my abilities, and just the encyclopedia of knowledge of all the wealth of the books I've read, all the films I've done, making all those connections, studying all that shit. It's taken me 40 years, and you want that for free? Suck
Yeah,
my
fuck you.
motherfucking dick. All right? No. I'm not giving that shit away for free. That's a wealth of knowledge. It's worth
Well,
something.
yeah.
It is
Well,
worth something,
I'll pay you
And
in
that's another thing
exposure.
is, yeah, yeah. For a lot of
Uh,
time, I had a lot of problem with self-worth. Like, I felt like I
yeah.
wasn't worth anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I would give up my shit for free, time and time and time again. And it
Yep.
just kept coming back, and the more you start giving stuff away for free, then everybody expects it. So it's like,
Exactly.
it's worth something. Everything you do is worth something. You're worth something. So, and the thing is, if you weren't worth something, nobody would want to talk to you. They know you're worth something, but they might even convince you you're not worth it. They might gaslight you, like, oh, you're not worth. But then, if I'm not worth anything, why the fuck are you talking to me?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Exactly.
you
What
know,
you in my face for then?
exactly, exactly. They're talking to you
Jog
for a
on.
reason, because you have some knowledge or ability that they need, that they do not have.
Yeah.
And I go to designers, or book designers and stuff like that. Like, I can kind of design a cover, but not as good as somebody who does it all the time, and who's spent
Yeah.
their 20, 30, 40 years doing it over and over and studying it and everything. I would just rather pay them to do it, and I pay them. Like, I could not get that shit for free. I feel guilty. It's like, I
Yeah.
would never waste your time with that. I will pay you, as long as I can afford you. I will, we'll talk money, and if I can pay you, I will pay you. If we can come, agree upon a fee that's fair for both of us. But but I would never expect anybody to do that for free. Because it's like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't insult you because you have gone to art school. You haven't gone to art school, whatever. You have this ability, and I've seen your ability and it's amazing, and I can't do that ability, so I'm going to pay you for that ability and your time to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's, like I've had similar experience with like tarot reading because I read
Right.
tarot cards,
Yeah.
and it's everybody and their brother. And I used to do
Hmm.
it for free, but
Yeah.
back then when I was in my 20s, I was practicing,
Right.
and
Exactly.
I didn't
Yeah.
feel right charging for that. But
Right.
I know what the fuck I'm doing now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
good at what I do. Yes, you're
Exactly.
either going to
Yeah.
pay me the money or, and I will even barter with people.
Right.
There's honor in the exchange. As long as we're
There is. There
exchanging
is.
something,
Exactly. Yeah.
we're
Yeah. No.
good. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Bartering is fine. It's part of the
yeah,
process. Absolutely. I've every contract, that my attorney has gone through has been a bartering thing. It's like
yeah.
they offer this. It's like, no, we want this, and then somewhere you meet in the middle. It's just like,
Yeah,
okay, this is what it's going to be. It's like, all right, everybody's, and then once that barter is reached and that agreement is reached and hands are shook and contracts are signed, then you go about what you promised to do. So yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know. So,
So
I did want to talk before I
yeah.
forget, 'cause I mean, gosh, we've been on here almost an hour already.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's been so nice talking to you.
Yeah.
Um, I did want to ask about the zombie book,
Yeah.
um, because I'm listening to it on Audible,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I didn't buy a copy first so I could
What?
hear
No, I'm
it.
just kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You can fire me now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I love that it's almost like found audio.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
supposed to be like found audio, and
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
that was a fabulous idea.
I will tell you the whole story of the zombie book as quickly as I can, all the way up through the audiobook, which to me at the time, I was like, how the fuck are you going to do an audiobook of a book that's mostly, um, you know, image driven, So
Yeah,
what happened was, I guess this was 2000, 2008. Yeah, it was 2008.
yeah.
It was actually a friend of mine, who's working at this book company, Becker and Mayer, which I had actually worked at. I worked there from 2004 to 2007, before I was fired. And
I was fired from a bookstore too.
yeah, I was fired. Yeah, yeah. It was a really weird day. It was just like,
Yeah.
and honestly, I would have fired me as well because I was just not happy there, and I was actually looking for other work at the time, and they were just like, I just wasn't present. I wasn't happy there, so I totally would have fired me too. I only blame myself for that. I was
Oh,
just, I started out as when I first got there, like I got a bonus. They were like, wow, and I was like in the meetings and ideas, and I was just like, and they're like, wow, you're really on fire for a new employee. And by the end, I was just burnt out, and I was working on a really difficult book project, and I just wanted it to end. Every time I was like, when I first started going to work, I was like so happy. I was like, whoa, I have a job I love, And I was like, woohoo, I'm going to work and I'm going to make books and I'm going to be a book editor. And then by the end of it, I just wanted every day, I just wanted to fucking drive into traffic, just like, oh, this truck, I'm going to drive right into. It's like if I don't.
I'm
So,
glad you didn't.
I know, yeah, me too. But yeah, so I would have fired me too, and it was kind of funny. Like everybody happened to be out of the office at that time. My computer froze up, and then it's like,
Oof.
Don, can I come see you in the office? And then it's just like, we're going to let you go. And I'm just like, okay. And I got like, escorted out, the walk of shame. Thank
Oh.
God they kept the walk of shame to a minimum because nobody was there. And then my friend later was like, Don, what happened? I just heard you were fired. I'm like, yeah, and that was depressing. That was 2000. Fuck. July 3rd, 2007.
Oh
And
no.
I was taking the next day off for it was 4th of July, and I
Yeah.
couldn't even tell my wife until like July 5th because I was so fucking depressed, and I knew she was going to be
Oh.
pissed. And I was just like, and so that was like the most miserable 4th of July of my life because I was just holding in this secret, but
I'm
anyway,
so
the funny,
sorry.
the funny thing is, I ended up working for them, like being a book writer. Like I wrote all these books for them, like through Scholastic, like because in 2006 I wrote like the scary stories book because
Yeah.
the writer at the time, I was just going to be the editor on it because they're like, oh, Don's a scary guy. He has all the monster dolls, you know, and models and his thing. He's the scary guy, obviously. He should be working on this book. The writer never came through the stories. I sent a draft of a story. And they're like, oh my God, you're like the next R.L. Stine. You should be writing this. You know, we were kind of the middleman. We were like a book packager. And then the output goes to Scholastic book clubs. So that's kind of how that worked. Becker and Mayer was just a book packager. They just kind of put an idea together and they pitch it. They're almost like a movie production company. And then they pitch it to like a studio, you know, Scholastic or Chronicle Books or something like that. And then, you know, what they'd do is they would put a cover together and then a couple pages of a layout and kind of give okay, this is what it's all going to be. You know, then you basically pitch it just like you would do a movie. And then they either buy it or they don't. And then once it is, you get a team together, you get your production designer, your editor, you know, your designer, and then you put a book together. You know, that's what a book packager does. So they're kind of the middleman.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'd written one Scholastic book for them, and it sold really well. And then the winter of early 2007, I wrote like 2 more. And so they were still hiring me to write those books. And then my friend was like, Don, they're writing a zombie book. You should really get in on that. And I'm like, oh, wow. And there was like 2 sides to Becker and Mayer. There was the juvenile side, which is I worked on, which is funny because when I went my job interview, I actually went to the adult side because they did like the higher end books, like the Audrey Hepburn book or the Bird Song book, which is probably one of their most popular books. Yeah. And as they're interviewing, they're like, I think you'd be better on the juvenile side, which I thought was kind of hilarious, you know, which makes sense because, you know, I'm a kid at heart, right?
Yeah.
that's why they
Nothing
said it, right?
wrong with that.
Yeah.
But
so,
ouch.
Yeah. So this was the one they were doing on the adult side. And I knew the editor on it. And I called her. And I'm like, hey, I hear you're doing a zombie book and I would love to be a part of that. And they're like, yeah, all right, you know, well, this is kind of what they wanted to do. Was there was that great book of that gnome book. I can't remember the author, but it's a gorgeous book from the 70s. Yeah. It was really popular and it follows the lives of gnomes and what gnomes do, how gnomes like build their houses and so they can get married. You know, it's like their dowry so they can get married. And gnomes doing all these amazing things and just the most gorgeous art. And I wish I could think of the name of the author. But anyway, they wanted to do that with zombies. You know, they wanted to make kind of a parody book. And I was like, that's interesting. They're like, you know what? We'll pay you like, I forgot what it was, like $500 or something. We'll pay you like $500 to do an outline of the book, you know, like a concept. Because they just had like, oh, we want to do a parody book. And so I went and I went to like Half Price Books, bought a copy of actually, no, I think I had a copy of the Gnomes book. I have a pretty extensive library. I went through it and I'm like, wow, gnomes are very industrious. Wow, zombies don't do fucking shit. They die and they walk, they shamble around. They don't have, you know, there's no zombie weddings. There's no like, you know, so I kind of like zombies don't do jack shit. But what if you had a character who kind of was scientist type? And I was like, what kind of scientist? And I was like, what if he was I wanted to do a kind of a nerdy dude too. I was like, what if he's like a bird watcher? So he would be kind of scientific in that way as far as studying behavior and stuff like that. And what if there's this guy who just kind of observed them and in a way he's also trying to find a cure. So there's actually a story through line that goes through that. Yeah. And so I wrote the outline. I think it was November 2008. I wrote the outline. They paid me my $500 or whatever it was, which was a lot of money at the time because at that time I was working a lot of like odd like little writing jobs and, you know, collecting unemployment. So $500 for just like a day or two of work was, you know, like, wow, you know. So I wrote that and then they're like, you know, we're going to get a big name writer. We're going to get Max Brooks to write this book. And I'm like, oh, Max Brooks, you know, the zombie survival guide. All right. Yeah. Good luck with that, you know. So about January, like I figured that was the end of that, you know, and I think January, they're like, hey, Don, we need you to write this zombie book. I'm like, okay, we need it we need it in 2 weeks. All right. And then like later on, as I was starting to write, they're like, no, we need it in 10 days. And we'll give you $500. We'll give you $6,000 and we'll give you a $500 bonus if you finish it in 10 days. And I'm like, all right. So
You're like
I
Cash
I went to
Monday.
Starbucks every day and just like wrote. The thing is, the book is only about, I think it was between, I like, they only wanted the book to be between 15,000 and 20,000 words, which is not very long. That's like a
Yeah.
novelette in word count. That's not even a novel. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, I was like, oh, this is basically about the length of a screenplay. And I'd already written screenplays. And so I did kind of structure it like how I'd write a screenplay. So there's definitely a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And and as I pitched it, I was like, I kind of want it to be kind of like Blair Witch. I want it to be, I think you could really build some suspense in it
Yeah.
if if something happened to the author and we kind of want to find out. So you've got the through line of him trying to figure out what happened and why. But then you have this other mystery of like, well, what happened to the guy where we found all these, this manuscript and all these drawings. So I thought that would be enough to give the story an arc. So this went from being a parody book to actually kind of being a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
So whatever I did, they really liked it. I had no say in the editorial process. Like I don't really like some of the choices they made, and they changed some things. I didn't like that at all. But I had no say in it. They just paid me my money and fuck off. So I never met the artist, Chris Lane. Yeah, but I love his work. He's from Oakland.
Oh,
I think
cool.
I think he opened a restaurant now, and he's doing a lot more of that. Like he was doing a lot of, I don't know if he's doing as much art anymore, which gorgeous work. I talked to him on the phone one time, but and shared some emails, but I've never met the guy in person. But yeah, he did this, and he also they like, he was really rushed too. He only got a very short time to do
Wow.
all those paintings, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, obviously they decided to make a calendar out of it.
Yeah.
So that was the zombie book. It came out. And the funny thing is I was like, oh my, zombies are so passe. It's like, I think you missed the boat here. I think zombies are over. And that was right before the Walking Dead series came out.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
Zombie Con came out. And that's, I was at the two Zombie Cons in Seattle. So that was right when the
Cool.
big zombie boom happened. So it was right on the pulse of that. And so that book sold like crazy. And I just kind of rode the wave of that. Like I didn't get, I got no royalties from it. I just, I was just got my $6,500. I'm sure in royalties, I probably would have gotten maybe 100,000 or something. Who knows? A lot
Yeah.
more money than I would have. But, that was like my first really big book. All the Scholastic books I'd written, had only been through the Scholastic book clubs. So you couldn't even buy those in a store. So this was my first book. You could go to Barnes and Noble, and we had a big, I went to Powell Books. I went to Barnes and Noble. I set up all my own signings. They were
Oh,
kind of
wow.
like,
Yeah.
they were just kind of like, no, we're not going to market that. We finally realized a lot of money. We're just going to let, this was Chronicle Books. They were just like, we're just going to let the audience kind of discover it. And I was like, fuck that. This is my first opportunity to fucking have a book. And so I just called
Right.
bookstores right and left, like, hey, I've got a new book coming out. Can I do it? I just like booked, I built the Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I think some of the success, I'd like to say some of the success of that was just me kind of marketing that a little bit, because they did a werewolf book one later and it wasn't even nearly as successful because they just, I thought the book was fine, but I just don't think it was marketed enough. And I don't think that the author was really interested in doing that, but where I was just like, um, totally into it, and maybe it was
Yeah.
also the subject. I mean, I love werewolves and everything. I actually turned in a outline for that book because I wanted to do that one, and they decided to go with another story. But I
Aw.
think the zombie craze, obviously, but I think just that little help of marketing was something, and I just wanted to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
cut to that was what 2009 2010 when that book came out, and then a couple years later, I got a call from audiobook company. I think it was Audio Go, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do an audiobook." I'm like, "Okay, it's not very long, and how are you gonna do it's like picture driven?" And they're like, "Well, maybe you could kind of rewrite it a little bit, to help with that."
Mm.
I'm like, okay, and so they paid me some money. I think like $500 to kind of like take my manuscript. Luckily I had a copy of the manuscript still, and then I just kind of wrote it like a script, in a way. And I was like, man, there's like stuff I could wish I could have said more of, like especially in the closing. Like I
Mm.
kind of wanted to give, Twombly kind of a farewell speech in a way, kind of what he's learned through the journey. So when the book does kind of end sort of abruptly, at least we kind of got what he was thinking and everything.
Yeah.
And so I actually added that, and I added a little bit of description. I think when he goes to that first camp, I added some description about how it was laid out and stuff, just to kind of help with that. And later on, I've had people like, hey, I was teaching a class with this book and it doesn't seem to line up. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. It's like I actually added some, I added some bonus footage that's not in the book to the audio. But I was really impressed with it. When the audiobook finally came out, I drove out in the middle of the country, out on the middle of the countryside, and just listened to it at night. And it was like I was actually getting really creeped out. And
Yeah.
I kind of forgotten about the book, so it was like somebody else wrote it. And the
Oh,
way it was done, and they just used a little bit. I usually don't like sound effects in my audiobooks, but
yeah.
they just did a little enough of it, like some crackling fire and a dog barking and stuff, where it's
Yeah.
not too intrusive. So I thought they did a really good job, and the narrator was really good.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really effective audiobook, honestly. I didn't think it would. I didn't think it would be. So I was really impressed. And yeah, I was creeped out by the end of it. I was like, damn, this is kind of a scary book.
I've been listening to it, while I'm cooking dinner in the
Right, right,
kitchen, and it's like, I'll see something, the cat will go running by because she's
right.
chasing something. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
ah,
Yeah,
what
they
are
just
you
saw.
doing?
Yeah, you got some dead kind of shambling. And
Yeah.
I actually pitched a sequel. Chronicle wasn't really the thing is like Chronicle. I mean, they probably had their reasons, but in 2010, I like a movie company approached me about doing a movie, and I was like, okay, yeah, I would love to do that. First of all, I don't have the rights; it's owned by this company. I'm
Yeah.
like, but I want to take first crack at the screenplay because I didn't really get paid I got paid okay for the book, but I would really, I'd really like to write. Like to take first crack at the script. So I actually wrote a whole treatment that, because the way the book is, I did use kind of the screenplay format as far as the, beginning, middle, and end, first, second, third act, but it really needed to be expanded more and it needed more of an ending. So I did that and I kind of wrote this thing and they really liked it. But the sad thing is, like, they tried to get the rights, but the publisher didn't want to option the rights, which is basically, you kind of lease the rights. Like, okay,
Yeah.
and optioning the rights, they might be like 10 or, $5,000 or $10,000 for a year or 18 months.
Wow.
They were like, they had to buy the rights, and they were like in the high, like 5 to 6 figures. And I'm like, who does
Oof.
that? You don't
Yeah.
sell the right. They're not going to buy the rights. They just want to option it, and then they can see if they can get the money together. When the money comes together, then yeah, then they'll buy the rights. But a company needs to option them. Nobody buys rights outright. Nobody buys
Yeah.
book rights outright. That rarely happens. They option. Clare was optioned. Snowblind's option. I get my option money, every year to 18 months, whatever the option is. But
Huh.
nobody buys the rights outright. And the thing is, they could have built, like we could have built a cool movie out of it. We could have built like
Yeah.
sequels. I had all these ideas of like, it's like there, we could have other stories happening simultaneously. We could do a lot with it. I actually wrote a sequel because Audio Go actually wanted to do a sequel. Chronicle didn't want to do a sequel, but Audio Go wanted to do a sequel. So we were going to do an
Oh.
audiobook only book. And I was going to take the Catherine character, who I really liked, and
Yeah.
Chris's image of her that's one of the best drawings in there with a machete and everything. I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of, she's like nothing, like she doesn't, die in the first book, spoiler alert. And I was like, what happens to her and what was her journey? And so I wrote this really elaborate kind of story, which I really liked, and I turned it in, and I forget, they offered, at the time I had an agent, and they offered a really low sum of money. I mean,
Ooh.
it was kind of insult.
Insulting.
I was like, dude, that's real. I was like, can we? I mean, at least double that, I mean, it was really low.
Yeah.
I don't want to say because I don't want to, embarrass him, but it was not, it was kind of, part of me is now like, I kind of wish I just would have taken it, because it was just like, at least the story would be out there, and that was pretty good. But at the time, I was just like, oh, come on. But so that never happened, and
I'm sorry.
c'est la vie. But that's kind of the zombies record of your infection story.
And it
So
is. It's really good. And like I said, I can't believe you went out. Well, you know what? I can believe you did.
yeah,
Going out into the middle of the field, it would not be me. I am
yeah,
too
yeah,
much of a chicken shit. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. It
no.
made it creepier when I was out there like that,
Yeah.
and especially the dogs barking, and then all of a sudden it just ends, and you're like, oh shit, I was actually pretty creeped out. So, and that's the thing about people are like, don't you read your own books? And I'm like, no, I suck at reading. Like I don't think I have dyslexia. It's kind of a mild dyslexia, but when I
Mm,
read, like, words move around on the page, and I read things in the wrong order. And when I write that way too, like oftentimes when I'm rewriting, I'm like, why did I put those words in that particular order? Sometimes you can get a cool effect from it, but most of the time it's not good. So
yeah.
I'm just not a like a thing. There's people who do performance. That's what they do. So
Yeah.
I would rather find somebody who's a performance artist, because performance artists, um, like one of my favorite, I think, is Bernadette Dunn. If you listen to her
Mm.
books, Haunting of Hill House and We've Always Lived in the Castle by like Shirley Jackson. Oh my God, Haunting of Hill House is I think it's the greatest haunted house book ever written, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, there wouldn't be The Shining or Hell House, The Shining
Hmm.
by Stephen King or Hell House by Richard Matheson. Also two great haunted house books. If
Yeah.
Shirley Jackson hadn't sit down to write Haunting a Hill House. I even have chills talking about Hill House. Um, I thought the Netflix series was okay. I thought they kind of captured the spirit of, the emotional part of it. But
Yeah.
man, I mean, and the 62 movie is pretty damn good, but damn, that book is just creepy. But and just the way she wrote it, but the way Bernadette reads it is so good. It's just like she makes it creepy and unsettling, and she's like the voice of Shirley Jackson. She should read all of Shirley Jackson's work. And honestly, We've Always Lived in the Castle, huge influence on Clare. Like the way that narrator just kind of comes in, Maricat, and just kind of starts talking about her life. And you could tell this person is very off-centered from reality, and I love that. And
uh,
it's just this thin little tome. And I was like, when I read that, I was like, I wanted to make it into a movie or a TV series immediately. They finally did, and the movie's not too bad. It's actually a decent movie, but man, that book is just so good. And the way she reads it, I mean, if you have a good audiobook narrator, oh man, it just really takes a book and makes it into something special. And and there's been some books that were like horribly read. I remember one of my favorite books is Something Wicked This Fate Comes by Ray Bradbury. And I
yes.
think it was Tantor Media, maybe. I don't know, one of those, Blackstone. The first reading they did of that sucked so bad. I wanted an audiobook version. And the guy was like all creepy with it, like, oh, and this happens next
Oh
and this.
God.
And I'm like, Ray
That's so
Bradbury
annoying.
is full of love and joy. Everything is
Yeah.
wondrous. Yes, darkness does kind of descend on Greentown, Illinois, but Ray Bradbury is about wonder. Like,
Yeah.
read it that way. And then they did get a reader, and that reader does a lot more like Ray Bradbury, because you can hear the joy in Ray Bradbury's words. Everything he writes is like that. So you
Yeah.
have to read it like that, because everything is wonderful to him. It's like he's discovering everything for the first time as he's writing. And that's what I love about Ray Bradbury. That's what I love about that book, is he takes something, so nostalgic and wonderful, and then it goes into a really dark place, but in a way that only Ray Bradbury can make that work. And so
Yeah.
having a reader do that, it's really important. So
Yeah. Definitely. Well, it can make or break,
it
you know,
does. Oh yeah, bad performance. Oh
sometimes
yeah. Oh yeah.
because
Yeah, I mean,
it's like,
it's just like casting the wrong actor in a movie. It's just like, it was supposed to be this other actor, and you're like, oh, what could have been, and you got
yeah,
this
it's like
person.
that would have
Yeah,
been perfect.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or the one thing that annoys me, because there was, I don't even remember which series it was, but I had just gotten on Audible and I was like, oh, okay, let me check out this witch book, and so I wound up getting a couple of them
Hmm.
because it was so good and I loved the narrator.
Right.
And then at the third book, they switched narrators and I was like,
Oh,
fuck
oh,
you. Why
oh,
would
dude,
you
that
do
hurts.
that?
Oh, that hurts. That hurts. That hurts. That hurts.
Yes. It's
That
like, no,
hurts.
no, 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 no. That's not how she's supposed to say it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that hurts.
It's
Actually,
distracting.
actually, that happens with the same narrator. If you take the George R. R. Martin books, the first Song of Ice and Fire books,
Yeah.
first three books, holy shit, Roy Dotrice, I swear to God, he has to come up with 200 different voices. And the
Wow.
guy was probably in his 80s when he did it. And it's amazing. Like, he does, that trilogy of books is perfect. And Roy Dotrice's reading of it is so fucking rich. And then all of a sudden, by the time Feast of Crows came out, and then the Dragon one after that, I think so much time had happened, like he forgot how he read the voice, like
Oh.
like Daenerys, like he did the perfect Daenerys voice in the first three books, and then he switched it, and I think that Arya too, like the voices were so annoying, and they had this weird kind of, I mean, Roy DeChuse is Irish, but they had this weird Irish twang to them. I was like, oh
Oh.
my God, why didn't you go back to your original voices? It like kind of ruins them because the first three readings are divine. And man,
Yeah.
those second two books really suffer, um, because his reading is not as good as them, and it's really sad. And of course, now he's gone, and
Yeah.
who in the hell knows when the next book's gonna come out. So whoever's gonna
Yeah.
read it, I mean, they have shoes to fill too. Even of course, even with Roy Dotrice's not as good reading, is still better than a lot of people's best reading. So I mean, he was just a master of voices. I mean, he was good. He was really good. But
Aw.
yeah, somebody's got some big shoes to fill whenever Winds of Winter, whenever the hell that book comes out,
Oh,
they
goodness
have some big shoes
knows.
to fill. Yeah, yeah.
I know, because
So
how long has George been writing that? It's
I
been
think,
like 10 years.
yeah, it's been 10 years, exactly 10 years, because the last one came out in 2011. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. And I would not want that job either. I would not want that job
Yeah,
because the
no,
thing is,
no.
when you're setting up a story, kind of anything can happen. But as
Yeah.
you're starting to close it down, I can see why it takes so long because you're kind of you're tying up a lot of loose ends and threads and changing it. So I when I'm getting to the end of a story, I start slowing down. Like the beginning, I'm just like racing, like
Yeah. Boom, boom,
wow.
boom, boom.
And then as I start getting towards the end, I slow way, 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 way down because I'm starting like, oh my God, am I paying everything off? Is everything, is there anything going to be left out? So you really start slowing down to make sure that you're kind of paying off all those threads
Yeah.
and yeah, so I could kind of see um, why that would, and he has probably has his own reasons why it's taking that long, but
Oh yeah.
it
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
but yeah, but that's a huge, and then to have this whole series kind of this like steamroller of a series, and then you got to write to that, and then people have all these
yeah.
expectations. I mean, he's paid very well, and he's made a lot of money. But man, I don't think I don't think I could handle that pressure. That would just be too much. So,
Yeah. I would hand it off to somebody else, I think.
yeah,
I
I
would
think.
hand
Well,
it off to a team.
I think he. Well, I know he does have Westeros experts, like people who like have studied Westeros so much. I think he actually kind of uses them as kind of specialists. He has to consult with them, like, okay, did I? Because I get that because I've written so much stuff, like I don't remember stuff I've written. I have
Yeah.
to go back and like, and his stuff is like tenfold, like he's got these whole
Yeah.
family dynamics, like keeping all that in your mind, you go crazy. So
Yeah.
having like experts on your own world would be very useful, that people are just, they've probably got it all diagrammed and everything. And, so, yeah, cause you can go crazy. Like,
Yeah. It's
I couldn't.
no, and I gotta say, because most of the time they start out as fans, which I highly suspect that you are going to get probably a plethora of these types of people.
Right.
But when I used to do conventions, it's like, I mean, You can ask anybody, whatever they're dressed as, you can ask them one question. You will find out the whole lore of who they
Oh
are
yeah,
dressed up as, who they were married
yeah,
to, who this
yeah,
one
yeah,
was. It's
yeah.
impressive. It's like,
It
how
is.
do
I love
you
that.
keep that all in your head?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
I'm telling you, con goer, I love going to cons because those are some
Yeah,
of the realest people
they
ever.
are. I love it. I love it. It's definitely my people. I've gone to well, I've been a part I've been behind the table of a couple of cons, the two zombie cons, and then
Yeah.
I've gone to a couple like Comic Cons, it's the Emerald one or Crypticon. I've gone to Crypticon once. I was invited to one once and I just couldn't go because I just didn't have the money to, you know.
Yeah.
But then I've gone another time and just talked to people. I met like Steve Niles, 30 Days a
Oh,
Night, and Mike Magnolia, fucking nicest guy ever. He signed my Hellboy stuff, and yeah,
so
and the cool
cool.
thing is sometimes like with Steve Niles, I just like there was nobody around and he was just kind of alone and I just kind of bullshitted him with him for a while and it's like sometimes you'll find people and if you can just
Yeah.
bullshit with them for a while. It's kind of cool too. And I know from being on the other side of the table, that's what you're there for. And if people want to bullshit with you about, I mean, you definitely have a lot of the same likes if you're at a horror convention. So
Yes.
you're going to find
Yes.
a lot of common ground to talk about. So
We should.
yeah, I
Oh,
love that.
that would be
So
fun if we could get you out here whenever the restrictions are lifted. Because I
yeah.
know Con Carolinas down in University is
Oh yeah.
I think they're coming back this year, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the Mad Monster Party, which I think you would
Oh,
absolutely
that sounds cool.
love. It's such a
Yeah.
fun. That's where I
Yeah.
met Ken Foree,
Oh wow.
Patricia Quinn,
Oh man, that's awesome.
Heather Langenberg.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's great.
I think it was like I can't believe I'm standing here with all these
Yeah.
people because I
Yeah.
was helping somebody out with one of their booths and
Right.
just hanging out for the day, and watching their kid and kind of giving them a break, like, hey, go get some food. I'm just go
Right.
sit here and
Yeah.
massage Jason Voorhees's neck or
Right.
whatnot.
Right. Right. Oh, King
Which did
Hodder.
happen. It was,
Right.
oh,
Right.
that was, I was like, I didn't know who he was. And he's like,
Right.
his neck was hurting. I was
This
like, oh,
this
here, let me,
big
yeah.
yeah, he's got a neck like a pit bull, It's like
I definitely could barely get my arm around it, let
Oh
alone
yeah, yeah.
my hands.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's like a tree
But
trunk,
yeah, I know. We'll
I
have to, we'll have to get you
would
out for
definitely
that.
love the con
I think
again.
that would be awesome.
Actually before the pandemic, Um, I was going to go with my Parliament House people to New York and do that
Oh,
one. I wanted to go to New York because I lived in New York for a number of years and I have some
got the
friends
best bagels.
there. And at first I was going to go and I was like, maybe I shouldn't because I don't even have a book coming out until like the following. Well, what am I going to give away? Bookmarks. But now that my book's out there and then I'll have another one out, in this fall, Usher House Rising is coming out September 21st.
Awesome.
So I'll have two books, out there. And that's kind of why I've stopped kind of going to things because like it'd been so long between books,
Yeah.
that I just didn't feel like I had anything to offer. So I'll definitely, now that I have two new books that'll be out, I have a bunch. I've been buying up, Zombies has gone, into remainder. So I buy up as many copies as many good copies as I can find on like eBay or on Abe Books. Like if I can find a decent, copy for like $4 or $5, I've been buying the shit out of those
All
just so
right.
I have,
Well,
just so I
yeah.
have them. So I'll bring all my books, and my all my Scholastic ones. I have so few of those. Like I was selling those, and now those are just like they quit doing those because it had the little plastic hand on there, and I guess it was really expensive
Oh,
to kind of put out. But what I told him was like, you know what, screw the plastic hand. You should just do like a compendium of all my stories or something, and just do as a paperback or something like that.
yeah.
Like you don't have to have the plastic thing is a kind of a cute gimmick, but you don't need that. And who knows, maybe down the road they might, but and maybe not. I was also, as you get, you're at certain levels when you're a writer, and you're like, oh, that was the Don Roff of 2007. So, some of my
Yeah.
stories are like, oh, dude, these are so painful. It's like, it's hard to read them because it's like the word choices you made. It's like, oh, you really could have. Yeah, I'm reading it like,
Yeah.
man, you really could have developed this more, Don. Come on, It's just like, so I'm always like looking at my old writing, like, God damn, this sucks. So yeah.
I know how that
Yeah,
feels.
yeah. Even
It's
when I
like,
was doing
what?
Clare at 16, yeah, it was the same way because that was the 2013 Don, and here I'm at the 2020 Don, like rewriting the book, and I that was a lot of the editing was going. Well, I had to update it for one because the world had changed so much,
Yeah.
in 7 years. It was a completely different, kind of story, and also just the writing. I was like, I really had to like bring the writing up a little bit more too because it just wasn't to my liking because I had evolved, and that's the great thing. So I think if you go back and kind of look at your old writing and it's a little bit embarrassing, that's actually good because that means you're
Yeah.
evolving.
It
That means
means you've
you're
grown.
evolving. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
grown and you're evolving. So it's not a bad thing at all. You just like you can just look back and like, okay, yeah, I did the best I could for what I had at the time. I mean, that's all you can
Yeah.
do. 'Cause I'm not anywhere the writer I want to be. I'm not the writer I want to be in 10 years. I'm not there yet. But you just do the best you can at that time. You put out the
Exactly.
very best thing you can, and then the next one, you try to challenge yourself a little more and make yourself a little bit uncomfortable ahead on this, but that's okay because you want to challenge yourself. I think
Yeah.
David Bowie said it best, like, you know, it's like walking out into a lake or into a body of water, and you can kind of start feeling the shore slip away from under your feet. And when you just can't feel the bottom, you're just kind of feeling a little uncomfortable. He's like, that's a good place to be. And I always remember that because that's a great analogy.
That is
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, he obviously said it's David Bowie. He said it a lot more
Yeah.
eloquently than I did. I'm paraphrasing, but I think yeah. You always be challenging yourself a little bit. I mean, don't go fucking
Yeah.
crazy with it. Just push yourself a little more on the next whatever you're doing next. Just push yourself a little more. Whether it's exercising and you do one more push up, or running,
Yeah.
you might go a quarter of a mile more, whatever. Just maybe push yourself a little more or not. But
Just
if
eat that extra cookie. That's where
exactly,
my
eat that
mind
extra
is.
cookie. Yeah, like have that extra slice of cake. Fuck it. You're gonna die anyway, die fat and happy, right? So
I'm going the wrong
so
direction, sorry.
yeah. So yeah, yeah, whatever it is, just I mean, it's always cliche, like success is right outside of your comfort zone, but there's definitely there's truth to that too. Making
Yeah,
yourself a little bit uncomfortable, to try to make yourself a little better. There's nothing wrong with that. So,
exactly. You never know, you'll surprise yourself.
and the thing is, if you're not challenging yourself, then you're going to get bored with whatever you're writing, and then the
Yeah.
reader's going to get bored, and that's not a good thing. Like this next Usher House book is going to be a lot different. The first one, I kind of went with a kind of more of a gothic romance, and it was kind of setting up the story. And this one, I'm gonna kind of go a little darker, and also add a little more comedy to it too, and like
Ooh.
kind of go in a whole new direction with it. I don't think people are going to quite expect, and I kind of like that because I'm not really sure what to expect, but it's kind of an experiment. But I think it will pay off, um, and I think it's going to be kind of a signature of what people like about my work, but it's going to go in a way they're not quite expecting. So. Doing that makes me excited about it, So
Cool.
yeah. So, and of course, I have to write this book because if I don't get this book done in 2 months, I'm like, I'm going to blow
Yeah.
my next publication date, which will be September 2022. So it's like
Uh-oh.
I have to get the book done. So, but now I finally like found that sweet spot where like, yes, this is going to work. This is going to work. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
kind of happy.
fantastic.
So yeah, I started writing it, and I'm feeling good. But yeah, it's definitely pushing my comfort zone a little farther out there a little bit, but that's okay because that's a good place to be. Because if it wasn't, I would be kind of bored, So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
I'm
boring
glad you're
writing
not
makes
bored.
bored writer makes bored reading, right? So.
Yeah, yeah. I've read some, like, there's
Yeah.
very few books that I will like pick up and just put down.
Right.
It's like I'll at least give you like,
Yeah.
3 chapters.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
don't have
That's
me
fair.
hooked by 3 chapters,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's not going anywhere, or you've
Right.
saved
Right.
all of it till the end, and it's like,
Oh hell no!
I
You got to
really don't
start
want to
off.
make the journey there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
That
kind of
that
tired of
yeah.
it now.
Yeah. That was when I started writing Claire. That was my challenge. Like I wanted to start out, with a bang on the opening line. Go fuck a collie, and you've got this guy who's
Oof.
basically soliciting her to get her in the car. And so she's already in dilemma. You don't even really know who this person is, but after she kills the guy, then we start learning all about her. So we've already got a murder on like the first I think chapter 2. Mr. Screepy is dead, which is the whole chapter.
That's
And
awesome.
then it's like now we can. So we've already got the murder, and it's like already intrigue, and then boom, then we can work on backstory, who she is, and then okay, now what's going to be what's going to be the consequences of that. So I find kind of starting out, if you kind of start out with this sort of catalytic moment, or the inciting
Yeah.
incident as they call it, kind of almost from out the gate, then you can kind of build your forward story and get a little bit of backstory of who this fucking person is and everything. I
Yeah.
learned that from the Donald Lee Westlake wrote these Parker novels under the pseudonym Richard Stark, which inspired Stephen King. His Richard Bachman books.
Yeah.
He did the same, nom de plume, inspired by Richard Stark. But Richard Stark books were just these really, I mean, they're a completely different style than Donald Lee Westlake. They're really stripped down, just no fat on the bone, badass novels, and they always start out with Parker, like somebody coming through the door and shooting at him or something like. I mean, just like they just start out like right out of the
Wow.
gate, like boom, I think somebody, you can look on the internet, like just look at the first line of every Parker novel, and they're funny, and they're like, I mean, talk about writing a hook line to get somebody into a book. I mean,
Yeah.
so I wanted to do that with Claire. It's just like nobody done that with a YA book, and obviously with analyzing a dangerous mind, as well.
Yeah.
So all just those things. I just basically wanted to write the book I wanted to read, So that's kind of what happens, You just write the book you want to read. So
Yeah. I
even
know.
if you're not don't have the skills to write it, give it your best, try your hardest, and you might surprise yourself.
Exactly. There's editing for a reason.
Right,
I think
right.
you were the one
Yeah.
who said just write. You can edit in the aftermath,
Yeah, yeah,
which
absolutely.
is
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I forgot who
is
said it, but it's like might have been Hemingway. I don't know, but write drunk, edit sober. Obviously,
yes.
you can't really write drunk. You don't get that. But just be drunk in your writing, and just don't think. Just don't think.
Yeah.
Like Ray Bradbury was up. I don't think. You can think about plot and blah 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 blah. But when you finally get to writing, it's all about feel. No, just keep
Yeah.
your mind out of it. Go with a feel, and just fucking go through it. Make mistakes, vomit that shit out,
Yeah.
get it done, and then when you come back with, set it aside for a while. Then you come back with clearer eyes when you're sober. You're not
Yep.
drunk from your storytelling. Then you can really look at it with fresh eyes, and that's. But if you don't get that passion and that feeling out in the first draft, you're probably not going to get it out in the second draft. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good to get all that, just vomit it out and get it out there. Get all the emotion, all that emotion that you have, get it out there on the page. Because it's hard to get it. It's hard to bring up a second time, So
Exactly. Yeah, see, I don't know. My problem is like when I write something, I'm already at like hearing questions that will come up because of
yeah,
this, and I'm already trying to answer it in my head and fix it, and it's like, no, just
yeah,
fucking
no,
write.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ignore that, because that's that
Yeah,
voice you don't, just turn it off. Turn it off.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. I don't
yeah.
like her.
You can,
I
yeah.
give her a glass of wine and send her
Exactly.
off.
Yeah, yeah. That's that other voice that, I know, and a lot of times, before I started, like, really resetting my mind, and I started meditating, daily. I was like,
nice.
I would get that voice like, you suck, you suck, you suck, you're fake,
Yep.
yeah. I would get that voice like, you suck, you suck, you suck. I mean, I would literally hear that, you suck, you suck, you suck, just over and over again. And I had to turn that voice off because it's like, that's not me, that's not me at
Exactly.
all.
Yeah.
That's just, that's just negativity manifested over, time and stuff of kind of believing people who never really knew me, or, I mean,
Yeah.
that's me. My mind is not telling me that. That is not who I am. My mind is actually trying to protect myself. So all that negative self-thought, comes from an exterior source, and none of it's true. It's not true,
Exactly.
So stop believing in it and stop telling yourself that, because it's not real. It's not a real thing. And once you can, kind of learn how to quiet your mind and concentrate, man, it makes all the difference. All that goes away, and you're just like, you just
Boom.
you get out of your own way and create, and
Yeah.
so it's really important. And I know, as being a lot of authors, self-doubt and self-worth, you kind of walk hand in hand. I mean, some of the greatest
Yeah.
writers, Sylvia Plath, Ernest Hemingway. I mean, look how many writers, Virginia Woolf, they all died by their own hand,
Yeah.
and a lot of that was, I mean, they're brilliant writers, but there was so much pain and a lot. They probably could have written a lot more work, but that self-doubt, that crippling self-doubt, and that voice can shut you down, so you just have to turn it off,
Yeah.
so because it's not worth anything. It's not useful at all. So it's
Yeah.
the antithesis of creativity. So fuck it.
Yeah.
You have to write in spite of it. You have to like make fun of it and laugh at it, so
Well, I
um
think that is very sound advice.
yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, because I am going to have to take a bio break here in a
yeah,
moment. And
let's wind this up.
actually, uh-oh, I hope they figured out dinner because,
Oh yeah,
yeah, oh, no, 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 no.
baked beans are
I'll
good.
make
Baked
it,
beans and
yeah,
beanie weenies,
ramen. Yeah,
yeah.
tomorrow I'm making, it's a recipe, like, I don't know if you go on Reddit, but they have, these GIF recipes, and then they'll, put the instructions and all that in
Right.
or the comments.
Wow. Okay.
But they have one for Spirited Away, the Cornish game hens,
Wow.
and I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to try that. So I'm trying that on
Nice.
chicken thighs.
That's kind of like thematic, you can even do that and have the dinner in the movie,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So it's like, I don't know, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have time for that. So
right.
regardless, it doesn't matter. This has been more fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yay, no cooking.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much,
And
Dorian.
yeah, and we'll have to have you back when the movie is released and when the
Yeah.
next book
Yeah.
gets
Let's talk in
published.
September when Usher House comes out. So that'll be
Absolutely.
closer to Halloween anyway. So that's, that's
Yes.
the golden time. So, and by that time, yeah,
Definitely.
there might be some more Claire news as far as like what's, maybe the movie's wrapped by then. I don't know. So maybe we can talk about it. I don't know. We'll see.
That would be wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
we're not holding our breath for any
No, don't hold your
definite,
breath. You
not
can't,
until
yeah,
this
movie
virus is
stuff.
gone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, movie stuff takes forever too. It takes forever. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving pieces in that. Books, books are a lot easier. You turn your manuscript, your editor, boom, 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 then it's out. So
Yeah.
it's just like there's nothing. There's not actors to negotiate with and sets to build and stuff. So it's a lot
Yeah.
smoother process.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I am looking forward to it.
Yeah,
And
I
thank
am
you
too.
again so much.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
go out and buy Clare at 16.
Yep.
That way you will be up to date when Clare at 17 comes out in September.
Yes. No. Clare 17
Or
comes out next March 2022.
March
Usher House
2020.
Rising. Yeah, Usher House Rising comes out September 21st, 2021.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
But
sorry. I
yeah,
didn't mean to
yeah,
confuse
go get
you.
no worries, no worries. Yeah, go get Claire. You can buy it at the Parliament House website, or it's on Amazon. You can, you could get the hardback or the trade paperback or the ebook, we're still working on the audiobook. Hopefully it's out next month.
Awesome.
We're still finalizing that, but the reader on it is really good. We went through a lot of auditions, and everybody brought something to it. But man, the minute I heard Catherine's voice, I was like, "This is Claire. This is who I want." So, and she's been so great to work with. So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, just she's been terrific. So, shout out to Catherine. So, yeah, you're gonna enjoy the audiobook a lot. So,
yay!
Yeah.
So much exciting stuff coming up for you. I'm so happy.
Yes, excellent. I'm happy too.
Right. Well, and I'm going to let you go so you can get back to writing and get back to your weekend good. And your lovely lady. Please say hi to your family for me.
I will.
All right. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.